and such. You can have your fill, but don't take too much. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own.
Well, you sure have your own little girl. That's the first time I've gotten to hear you. It's wonderful, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You have a great life, I can tell. And last night I was at, Gerald Albright was here for the Legacy Festival over on the north side. And he's been a longtime friend of mine, so I watched him really dressed cool with his saxophone and the band, and the sun was going down. Beautiful Tulsa evening. And after the concert, I went back to just holler at him a bit. And I thought about what he does and what I do, what he's been doing for as long as I've been doing this. And I thought, because I've been planning for a long time to just get on the road with him for a few concerts, because they go to Frisco and San Diego and Paris and Monterey, and they're in these beautiful park areas, and and he blows a saxophone, the coolest smooth jazz, barely breaks a sweat unless it's as hot as it was last night. But I said, what a wonderful life you have. And I'm friends of his wife, Glennis, I know his children. And I was comparing my life with his and what he's done. And because we're thinking about memories, I said, I'm still going to meet you on the road. He didn't say to me that he thought I had a wonderful life and that he wished he was doing what I was doing. I'm doing what these folks are doing. Your life is boring, you guys. No, I'm kidding. We're in the ministry and we're serving, but I said, you were doing the same thing last night that we try to do each week when we meet, wherever we are in the country and in the culture. I'm 70 years old, so I think I have more memories behind me, more days behind me than before me. I'm titling this Mind, Memory, and Mercy. When you look at them, the mind is the seat of reflective conscience. So when you look at your reflection, it's usually in a mirror. And it's interesting, but you can't see forward in the mirror. You can only see what's behind you, which brings about memories. So you have to move the mirror at some point and look out the window. Sometimes you see a reflection, but you usually see what's in front of you. And my mother's 93, and she only talks about things in the past. Most she's outlived. Well, she didn't have any siblings, but she keeps asking me, am I going to Tucson? She was born in Texas, but she moved to Tucson when she was 3, and then to San Diego when she was 10. But she asks me about my dad and her dad, both who have transitioned, her mother, her aunt, her grandparents. She's asking me about funerals for her grandparents. I said, Mom, how old are you? She keeps saying 72. She used to say 29. I said, Mom, you're 93, so try to guess where your grandmother might be. And I try to bring her back into reality. I'm losing a little bit of my mom. Excuse me, that I wasn't expecting. Little pieces of her go away. But I make her laugh a lot, and sometimes I say, Mom, neither one of us know what you're talking about. We all have all these memories and memories, the things you nurture. Usually it's your pain. Most of our pain is historical. It comes out of our past. And we tend to nurture the pain a lot. There's a lot of pain in our memories, a lot of pain in our past. And all of you who have lived any length of time, even if you're younger, you have survived. You are a survivalist. You have natural, instinctive survival tactics and techniques. It's very common. One of them is to trace and retrace. Now, this is Memorial Day weekend. Usually, and that holiday was founded around soldiers who died for our freedoms in this country. War is a terrible misstep or mistake. It's not always a misstep because you just have to fight. My dad fought in World War II. But it's a mistake culturally for the human race, the species. It's one of the most barbaric things we do. We're now confronted with it in Ukraine, the horrible things that other human beings, do to other human beings. It's just unspeakable. I'm wearing a little badge somebody gave me last night that says, I read banned books. I'm so disillusioned by this extreme, weird mindset. And we're talking about and thinking about the massacre. We used to call it a race. It was a massacre. And that same energy is still present in this city and on the planet. We saw it on January 6th, that people, and it's not just racism, there's a lot of things involved in it. It's spaceism. We don't like the space we live in or somebody else's space. And we're always trying to trade or trip or trick. Some try to connive. We do that with ourselves, we do that with our friends, and with our enemies. And we're manipulators by instinct. We don't realize we're manipulating, and that's not always a bad word. It comes from the Latin word manus, which is for hand, to manage or manipulate or maneuver. We came here, some of you have heard me say for years, that life is basically a sexually transmitted disease. Your mama and them was intimate, and here you come. Disease is the English word dis-ease, tension, anxiety, stress, duress, trying to be or become or be safe, to make space or place, to find our identity. And does our identity change over the years? I was thinking about that last night I'm sort of in a rebellious mood for at least 20 years because I've kind of shifted from my consciousness of the rearing out as a fundamentalist Pentecostal preacher, 4 generations. And when I started shifting in my thinking, people asked me, why did you change your mind? And I said, I didn't really change my mind. My mind changed me. It was thinking that I didn't invite. I'm not even sure I was welcome to the thoughts. Because where I was doing my thing. I was at the top of my game. I was 50 years old. Who changes at 50? At the expense of losing everything you'd built. And including not just a few friends, but almost all of them. I brought a few over here on the boat, on the ship from Higher D, and some of them are still here. But I lost a lot of friends, a lot of things that and I have a lot of people say to me these days, I said, we still love you, Bishop, or we still love you, Pastor, or we still love you, Carlton. Still is the word I don't like. You know, I don't care what anybody says, I love you. And I was like, what is anybody saying? Nobody means harm when they say that, because I get it a lot. To them, it's a compliment. To me, it's a bit of a slap. That they're saying, well, we still love you. I know that what they mean, but it means that even though nobody else does, or that many people don't, there's a lot of people who love me who don't like me. There's a lot of people I love and don't like. There's a lot of people you love and don't like. That's common. I'm not focusing as much on trying to love everybody because I don't really have a problem doing that. I have a problem liking people, including me. I'm still learning, maybe just learning, how to like me because all my liking of me was reflecting on what you thought about me. But when I say you, I mean people. Starting with your parents, your grandparents, your godparents, your siblings, your cousins, your school teachers, your schoolmates. We're always trying to impersonate who we think people want us to be so that they will like us. And maybe we might like ourselves. Do you like yourself better because I like you? Or your friend likes you? Or the person you're sitting next to likes you? Chances are the person sitting next to you doesn't necessarily like you, but they just love you. And most of us don't like ourselves, so you'll never really like others if you don't like yourself. Or maybe you will like others because you don't think they're like you. Mind, memory, and mercy. Mercy just means kindness. And I was out thinking myself as we're driving this morning, of course I think about it a lot. Am I kind to me? Do I have sympathy or compassion, co-passion? Do I feel my pain? It's like a part of me that looks at the guy that's hurting. And another part of me looks at the guy that's laughing. A part of me looks at the guy that's hoping. A part of me looks at the guy that's haunted or hunting. What's going on with these emotions and commotions and devotions that we have on this Memorial Day weekend? What are we memorializing? It's not just people who have died or gone on. And at my age, most of my peers are taking care of their parents or mourning the loss of their parents. I've had a lot of, I still think I'm a young dude and I'm losing young friends. My friends ain't young no more. I'm a bona fide senior citizen. And I'm still having trouble opening up an AARP envelope. I got one last week. It's dumb of me because there's all kinds of breaks and, discounts for my ego or something. It's just the first time I turned 50 and it came, I said, I'm not opening it. I've been 50 for 20 years. I ought to be over being 50. Where do these things come from? Where do we get these preoccupations about things we like or don't like? And why do we allow them to dominate or predominate our lives the way they do? So the theme of the month is mercy. And of course, tomorrow's the National American holiday, Memorial Day. We're talking about and thinking about the race massacre. It's also Pentecost Sunday today, where in Europe it's called Whit Sunday or White's Sunday. I'm from a classical Pentecostal background. Pentecost means 50th day. 50 days after the children of Israel made the exodus from Egypt, they arrived in the Sinai desert, where is the Sinai mountain upon which Moses received the law. And Pentecost for us was running and shouting and rejoicing and speaking in tongues and prophesying and praying with the sick and all the things I was raised with. With the Jews, it was the day of the giving of the law. What was important about the law was it helped you appease an angry God or please a difficult one. You ought to read the story. The laws were there, just 10, now there's hundreds. Rabbis, rabbinical thought have over the centuries added so many to those 10 commandments. They're basically harmless. There was a law they tried to enact in Texas last week where the 10 commandments were supposed to be by law in every classroom and they're basically harmless, but to impose that mentality, because it's a religious thing, on the culture, these I don't want to offend any MAGA Republicans. I get the words MAGA and maggot mixed up from time to time. There's an arrogance out there of extremism that imposes the same people who are woke, or anti-LGBT gay, or anti-choice, or anti-trans, are the same people who were anti-abolitionist in spirit. That same spirit, that critical, usually religious people, fundamentalists in any religion can be quite combative. That's just the way, whether Jews, Muslims, or Christians, or other religions. Fundamentalism can really, I call it fundamentalism. The mindset that insists that other people be as you are, think as you do, vote like you do. Now, we've never had such extreme polarity between the two parties in America. We've never seen it quite like this. There's an element in our country, in Congress, who would allow us to become a bankrupt nation. We're just days away from that. I have never in my life, as an American, seen the kind of anger and viciousness, and even banning books and it's like book burnt. Where did that energy come from, and how does it find space in our culture the way it does? I've just never seen it like this. And some of these are very intelligent and decent, moral people. They just indicted the Attorney General of Texas, and he's been impeached. He's the guy who was behind the anti-choice and what's happening for Governor DeSantis to say Florida is a place where yoke folk go to die. He may not know that means, woke people go to. That's a slap in the face of every person of color in that state. How can this open racism be so flagrant and people feel so clear about it? I find that very, very bothersome. And I'm thinking about the memories. When I first went to Canterbury Cathedral in England in 1972, and I'd been to Windsor, and not Windsor, Westminster, thank you. So many times I noticed when I got there that there were tombs in the floor and in the walls of all these beautiful cathedrals with the bodies of military veterans who had been killed. And that the religion, the Anglican religion in particular, but also Catholicism and Christianity in large, celebrates military or people who are patriots to the point that they fought and killed. We often say they gave their lives. We rarely say they lost their lives. It's both. They do give, but they don't want to die. They don't go to die, especially if you're drafted and you have to go. But we almost glamorize it by saying, well, they gave their lives, and the guy was 18 years old or 19, and his mom and grandma, and everybody's weeping. Well, he gave his life. That's the way we justify in our hearts, our heads at least, that my kid didn't die in vain, or my husband, or my son, or my daughter. My wife didn't die in vain. We find ways to justify our belligerence, our anger, our vicious, violent, racist, bigoted ways, regardless of your race. Again, we're talking about space too. How do we make room for others? Let's say that. Make room for others. That's easier said than done. Unless the others are, agree with you. Can you make room for somebody that you really don't agree with? And I've never felt that somebody's opinion was so violently, dramatically different than mine, except right now. It's just like these are extreme. To sit at the table with people you know you love and you know who love you, that you were raised with and raised around, and culturally and community-wise, and the opinions, ops is the Greek word for I, their view is so different. How can we look out that window or any of these windows of what I like about Unitarianism, but you don't have a lot of stained glass windows? We get to look out and see what's really there. Most of us see the same thing, trees, light. I was fascinated when I first came here that there were no stained glass windows, because that's the big thing, particularly in Christianity, have these beautiful, ornate, expensive stained glass windows with one of your names on them. Ain't nobody's names on these windows. They're just plain old ugly windows. No, they're not ugly. But sometimes they're not that attractive. But you look out and you see stuff that's interesting. Take a look out the window. Leave the mirror for a minute. Don't forget it, because you do need that reflecting. But leave it for a minute. Look out the window. What do you see is out there that's attracted to you? What's next for me? I'm retired. No, I'm a little tired. Semi-retired, a little bit more retarded, slower than I've ever been. I'm trying to remember things. It's interesting, I never had so much trouble remembering things. Little simple things, it's so irritating to me. When it's just something I know very simply, I always know it, and I can't remember it. I can't recall something, the name of a street, or some very common thing like door. What, with that thing that you pass through, what is it called? Door, dude. You don't remember the name of your favorite restaurant. All of us are experiencing memories. Now, memories are both precious, but most of them are pressured. We talk about precious memories. We have a lot of pressured memories, and we remember them more readily than the precious. Sometimes we have to try to find preciousness in the pressure. I often say with my mom, at the stage in her life and living with us, it's the sweetest nuisance I've ever had in my life because of the worry. Mom, are you okay, Mom? Did you eat? I take a nice warm towel and press it on her face every morning and on her eyes, and then put a little eye drops in there, and put lotion on her hands. And she always used Jergens lotion. I don't have that, but that was my favorite lotion for my mom. And, to make sure she's comfortable. My sister comes over, I bought one of those tubs where she can walk in because she has bad knees. And I'm always thinking about my mom. I peek in there several times a day, late at night. Sometimes she's in there talking to herself. This morning, I said, Mom, I hope you're praying because your mouth is going really fast. Who are you talking to? And she said, well, I was praying. She really was. She was just rambling about something. But you see that, and she's my mom. And, there are 6 children. And you want to love them and hold them. And yet, at some point, I'm going to walk in that room, and she's not going to respond. That's just, we're all prepared for that, my whole family. I don't want her to leave us from another place. I would never put her outside of my home because I'm able to take care of her. So, but that's a memory. In your mother, the memories where you took your first meal. She taught me how to sign a check, how to write. She told me when I came here that I should start, came to Tulsa from San Diego, that I should start using a D. Carlton, my middle name is Demetrius. I never put Carlton to me. She said, from now on, I want you to put Carlton D. Pearson. I actually signed my checks in my signature the way Mama signed hers. I didn't realize I was. Who pays attention to the way you sign anything until you have to sign a check? And you realize after they're gone or while they're going or they're slowly moving away, how many impartations they made into your life that you value differently, or you value more, or you value better, or you might value bitter, because a lot of the memories are bitter and painful. I'm thankful that I've always had a healthy relationship with my parents. I've never had major conflicts with my parents. I love them, but I have friends that have horrible relationships with their parents. Painful, and it hurts more because they're your parents. Nobody can hurt you like somebody you love. And this death thing that is a pall that hangs over us, I often say death is an extravagant, opulent, arrogant, and obstinate illusion. We don't really die, we do reiterate. We enter another, in my opinion, dimension, another level, another space or place or phase of existence in our infinite realities. Just like you have memories, they can seem very, very almost literal, and they were yesterday or 10 years or 40 or 50 years ago. But we have this sense, and we all want to live forever. Because we're always trying to, from the time we come out of our mother's womb or the time we pull a little milkless thumb to our mouths while still in utero. That's our first self-medication. Why, as a little embryo, pulling a milkless thumb, who taught him to do that? To pull the thumb to the mouth and suck life. That's your first indication of your natural survival instincts. And we carry that the rest of our lives. Being birthed and born and then coming down the birth canal, that's all traumatic for people. Our first trauma is the water breaks, and we've been swimming in that water for 9 months. And you hear your mother make a groan or a cry or a shout. Sometimes you hear that long before the water breaks when your mom and dad are arguing about you being here or there. Why didn't you use protection? You know we can't afford a child. I've sat in many counseling sessions with people who I helped them find that place where they remember feeling unwanted or unwelcomed. And they come out of the womb feeling unwanted or unwelcomed. And they carry that sense of abandonment into every relationship they have, starting with the one they have with themselves. They don't like themselves because they felt unwanted. Our foster care, there's over how many thousands, millions of people in foster care right now. I've talked to so many, and it's not all bad, but I've talked to so many who were in foster care. Almost everyone that I've spoken to were in the care program. My mother called it warehousing children, that had been in 30 homes from the time they first went in. 30 homes, and they're only 30 years old. Our prisons are filled with men and women who never felt wanted here. Their memories are all very painful. And if you listen to them and have a conversation with them when they're career prisoners, they'll tell you some stuff that makes you feel so much compassion. Our entire penal system needs to be reformed, deconstructed and reconstructed. So does religion. America's going through a deconstruction right now. Our country and our culture, even my consciousness is going through a reconstruction or deconstruction for reconstruction. And during the deconstruction, it's sloppy and awkward and cluttery and dusty. It's not attractive. And even in the reconstruction, they're still putting stuff together. So it's going to be sloppy for a little while. Get ready for it. Prepare for it. Walk around some things. Move things around. I remember when we had some renovation in our home in San Diego, when I was only 11 years old, and we redid the whole house that I was born in, but we lived out in the country for 7 years, and we came back home when my mom's mother passed away. And I remember how cluttery the house was. I'd come home from school for lunch and make my own peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's basically all I could find. Everything was disheveled. The kitchen was, they enlarged the kitchen, it had 2 bedrooms and another bath on that side of the house. It was just cluttery and dusty, and I'd hear the workmen whistling and singing and redoing our home. I had to keep telling myself, this is renovation. Everybody say renovation. We're all being renovated right now, whether you like it or not. You're all being reconstructed, first in consciousness, maybe even in character, certainly culturally. That's why you see all this belligerence. This is a last-ditch effort for the original conservatives who controlled this country all these years to say, we're going to keep in control. We're not going to let these woke people or these progressives or these liberals to take over. We're just not going to let them do that. They're holding on to the past, and we're saying, no, let the past go. We are going forward, and our memories are not just going to be behind us. We're going to create some new memories and change our mind and be kinder and gentler and more loving to one another. Can you imagine a different world? Can you imagine less guilt, less shame, less sham? Use your imagination. Imagine the person you see in the mirror looks exactly the way you want them to. And when you look out the window, what you see in the future. Use your image. Images are like magnets. They literally pull you toward them. What image do you have of yourself? Come, precious. And sing again with their beautiful voice. Can you imagine?